Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Quincy at the All-America Park on the riverfront at the Mississippi Valley Historic Auto Club, where since 1968 they've been operating a museum on this grounds. And if you look behind me now, you'll see the 1939 Packard, which is often in the first car you see when you enter the museum. But you'll also see over here the 1916 Dodge Brothers, and I'm not sure what to call this model, but come on up here with Dave Earhart and me and we'll learn more about this car.
Well, it's...
Dave, you've got a bunch of them, don't you? A bunch of antique cars.
I have a bunch of them.
And you brought this one down just for us today,
Yeah.
didn't you? We appreciate that very much.
Well, you know, I like to show them.
Now, I mentioned that this was a Dodge Brothers 1916. The Dodge Brothers were an interesting pair, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. They did a lot of engineering work for the early automobile companies. And, you know, it's part of the history that a lot of people don't understand or know about.
Yeah, in fact, in many ways, they were ahead of Henry Ford, weren't they, in their design
Well,
work?
yeah. Henry had the idea of the production line, but a lot of the things that were put in those cars, somebody else actually designed.
Mm-hmm. Would you open the hood for us and show us the
sure.
engine and then maybe start her up for us? A 1916 Dodge Brothers.
Yep.
Did this model have a name, or it was just called a Dodge Brothers?
Dodge.
What's it say? Oh, there's the insignia. Now, I'm not sure what that says or what that means, but that was their logo, huh?
Yeah.
Dodge Brothers. What does that say?
Well, it's just Dodge Brothers.
Just the Dodge. Okay, Detroit, Michigan. Okay, all righty. Okay, now what's unique about this?
Well, it has a starter generator.
Mm-hmm.
They're using those now today on lawnmowers.
Okay, and this is later. You don't have to hand crank this model. That's what you got
You
there.
don't have to crank it. You can,
Yeah,
but
but why would you, right?
why would you?
Can you start it up for us?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Oh, here's another
Okay.
cute thing. To check the oil,
Oh, okay. So that popped up and showed you what the level was?
yeah.
Okay, cool. You don't have to, no dipstick. You don't have to pull it out.
No dipstick.
Neat. All right.
And in this, when they built this, they built the transmission so that the gear shift runs backwards. If you want to put it in low for our cars, you're going to go backward.
But you know how to drive it, so you don't
Well,
do
you
that,
gotta,
right?
you gotta think.
You got to think backwards, huh?
You gotta think, yeah.
And this thing runs pretty good because you drove it right down here this morning, didn't you?
Oh no, I had it here last night, but
Last night. Okay.
I bought this.
Wow, that's smooth. That is smooth. What do people, when you're driving this around town, do you get a lot of looks?
Oh, I absolutely get looks. I bought this. It was in a shed out in Griggsville, Illinois for 30 years.
Is that right?
And the guy took pretty good care of it. He never ran it again, but he, you know, took care of getting it for being good. I bought it, I brought it home and cleaned the carburetor out, put a battery in it, and started driving it. And I said to my wife, I said, let's go down to the Berry Apple Festival. And it was just like it came out of the barn. The seats were getting torn, the top was ragged. And she says, will it make it? I said, well, it will or it won't.
Let's find out, right?
Yeah. And this thing will run about 60 miles an hour if you want to put it that far.
Wow.
Back in 1916, that was flying.
It's beautiful. Hey, listen, I also bragged about your Packard over there. Can you show us that one too?
Yeah.
You know, that's not quite as heavy as it looks, is it, Dave? It looks like it would be a real job taking that up. Because this is a huge, I mean, this thing weighs, what, 6,000 pounds almost?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
5,800.
5,800 pounds. And this, now we're looking at, that looks like 2, 4, okay, there's 6 cylinders. on one side.
And 6 on the
And
other.
6 on the other. So they called it a 12, didn't they?
It's called it a 12.
Is this the last year that 12
This
cylinders?
is the last year of the 12 cylinders.
No kidding.
And after that, I think what happened to start Packard downhill was they came out with that cheaper Packard. And a lot of the chauffeurs could then buy a damn Packard.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that bought the big ones, he didn't like the idea that his chauffeur could buy a Packard.
Well, of course not. That kind of you're not as important, Wade. Your chauffeur has a car just like you,
That's
right?
right. So I think that was
shucks.
probably part of the reason why.
But when
Packard,
this was made, this was part of the height of This was the height of luxury, huh? The Packard.
it was. Every one of these was actually ordered ahead of time and built particularly for that person.
How much do you think? How long would I have to wait back then if I wanted to order a Packard and get it delivered? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. All of these were individually ordered, and they go into production after you order them. So it's hard to say.
Will this one start up?
Yeah, it's also a full limousine.
Let's keep that door open if you don't mind so we can get a nice look in there. Yeah. Can I open this one?
Yeah, sure. It has the jump seats.
Oh,
It has
wow.
the division window.
Wow. Boy, that is luxurious. Beautiful. Now that sounds like power, Dave. Sounds like power.
473 cubic inch.
Wow. I bet this baby will go more than 60 miles an hour, won't it?
It'll run. I don't think I want to go all the way wide open, but it'll run.
And look at this, you got a window that goes up and down between you and the passenger section.
Yeah, that's because it's a full limousine.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you for starting it up
Yep.
for us. That's really neat. Well, Larry Mitchell, you're the president of this club, right?
Right.
But you've been in it for a long time.
Since 1974.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And when you first joined in '74, what kind of vehicles were you collecting at the time?
At the time, mostly Studebakers. That's my passion. But in addition to the Studebakers, I had older Fords and General Motors products. I've had Packards, and some different English cars, Triumphs, MGs, Austin Healey.
They're fun, aren't they?
They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I asked you to be here with me in front of this green wagon because I bet people, it's going to be an eye-opener for most people, that Studebaker got started making wagons.
That's correct.
And you even collect Studebaker wagons.
Yes.
It's cool. Tell me about this one.
Well, this particular model, it's an 1859. They started business in 1852. And it was two brothers, and then eventually all the other brothers in the family, they came on board. But it started out with Henry and Clem Studebaker. And this particular wagon would have been built while Henry and Clem were in the business, so to speak, since it was only 7 years after they started. So this was actually built by the Studebakers.
The original Studebaker brothers.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Along with their help, of course. And this one was made for the Western Territories. This started out its life in the Nebraska Territory, and then it migrated down to the Oklahoma Territory, and it stayed there.
This
from that
rolled
point
over
on.
a lot of prairie, didn't it?
Yes, it
rolled
did.
over a lot of prairie and plains. Listen, but they evolved. They started making
Oh, they
cars,
did.
right?
Right.
And that's what you really love is these Studebaker cars.
Yes.
Okay, let's set the scene on this one. It looks like maybe a bronze or a copper color. I'm not sure what you call it. But what's this one?
This one is a 1962 Gran Turismo Hawk, GT Hawk. That was probably one of the first designations used by an American company for a car, for their sports car.
Right,
car
everybody
there.
was calling them GT after that,
Yeah,
right?
GTO,
But this was the
GTX.
yeah, but this would have
Right.
been the first time.
This
Well,
would have
that's
been one
pretty
of the
cool.
first
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
And it represents the Hawk line that they started in 1956.
Was it successful, the Hawk line?
Very successful. It was one of their main sellers early on. and it stayed with them through 1964.
And you mentioned to me earlier this blue one up here. This was, in its time too, it was one of the most popular items, wasn't
Yes, this was their Now this was designed by Raymond Lloyd, Robert Burke, and as you notice from the front, it's kind of radical looking because they were trying to emulate a bomber, a World War II bomber, in effect. And a lot of people think it looks like a two-row corn picker, so you hear them called bullet nose, corn pickers. Which way is it going? It looks like it
does kind of look like a corn picker. I get it. I get it.
And they even made an aftermarket propeller that you could put on the front of these.
I'll be darned. Yeah. And would it spin?
It would spin. Yeah.
Like those wheels that keep going around that you see now.
And I happen to have one, but I didn't want to ruin my bullet there. So.
And this is 1950.
This is a 1950.
It was a big seller, but it kind of went away, didn't it?
Well, it evolved. It evolved. The design evolved from this particular style. And then they tried to get it into more of a streamlined look. So they went to the European type of body style with one over here next to it. Is that
the next one we see?
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of I guess a pinkish color. That was brave to make a pink car, wasn't it?
Right. It was three-tone black, and the orchid they called it, and then this gray color here.
Okay, okay. So the hood was a different color than this here.
Right.
And of course the black top. And this was a 1955 Studebaker President.
Yes.
Two-door. Okay, was two doors was that unusual or was that pretty normal?
No, that was normal. Most car companies, provided 2 doors and 4-door models. This one happens to be a hard top, which means there's no post, behind the front door, and they look really nice. Some people have them customized into convertibles, but they produced as hard tops.
Man, look at the hood ornament. That's serious, isn't it? They put a lot of work into designing those hood ornaments.
Yeah,
that's a lot of hardware. Okay, and we're working our way toward my favorite car that Studebaker ever built, but we're going to make a pit stop here in front of it.
Yeah,
this I mentioned to you earlier when I first saw this. This kind of looked like a Ford Falcon, and it was a '64, which was I think about the time that they were making a lot of Falcons. So this was a kind of a popular design, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah, this represents their -- models. They went out of business in '66. And the body style was this style with a few minor trim changes up through '66.
And they couldn't compete with this because too many people were making cars of the same mold, weren't they?
Right.
And so they went out of business. You think in '66 they stopped making? Okay, Studebaker. But everybody I think remembers the Avanti. Man, when I was growing up, this was a hot item.
Yes. Yeah. The Avanti is one of my favorites. I have 3, so.
Oh, you do have 3? Wow.
And it's a fiberglass-bodied sports car.
Do any of them run?
Oh, yes.
Does this one run?
This one runs.
Can you start her up?
I can do that.
Okay. I want to hear it. Woo. Woo. How many horsepower?
325.
325 horsepower. Wow. That's gorgeous.
Andy Granatelli sets Bonneville speed records in the Avanti.
Is that right?
Yes.
We're not going to see you the rest of the day now, are we, Larry?
No.
You're gone. Hey, thanks.
You're welcome.
Orville, there was a day when in West Central Illinois that these micro midget cars were a hot deal, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
In fact, your dad bought one of these because he wanted to compete.
My dad actually made this car.
He made it?
Yeah,
I thought he bought it.
No, he made it. This front axle is out of a Chrysler car. And this here is a reflector off a stadium light.
Say that again, it's what?
A reflector off a stadium light.
No kidding.
This is a headlight rim off a Dodge.
Well, he had an imagination. He could look at things and say, hey, I can use that, huh?
Yeah. These headers are just for show. They're not real.
These here, they don't do anything, but they look great.
They're just for show. And the motor's back here. And most of the times they were run without this cover on them because they were air-cooled engines.
Oh, sure. And what kind of engine is in there?
It's a chainsaw engine.
No kidding. You mean something like this, something like that'll run a midget car around. I'll be darned.
A 2-man chainsaw engine. And it's only engine. This is a kill switch is all that. And
okay, so if you're getting trouble and you need to kill it, that's the switch for that.
Yeah.
How do you start her up?
You just push it.
Oh, you push it, And then and what do you do? Throttle it or somehow?
Well,
I mean,
it's not a real engineer genius thing.
Yeah.
The guys would pick it up. We'd have two guys pick it up right here in the back and run with it, and then drop it, and then it would start.
Okay, so that's your pit. Those are your pit guys, right? Okay. Here we talk about your dad, and you got a picture of your dad here. Let's see, where is he? Is he here?
This is my dad right here.
Okay, and he's standing next to his creation. That's amazing. His micro midget race car. And you know, some of these guys, I mean, there was really kind of a tour, wasn't there? There were tracks around in these small towns, and people would go from track to track racing these, wouldn't they?
Mostly at county fairs. And there's was 3 or 4 little tracks around in various little towns around here. And this was the cheapest form of racing in the 50s, late 50s. And then when the go-karts started coming in, the go-karts were much better engineered and a little faster, and these things kind of faded away after that.
Let's take a look over here at the top right of this of these pictures here, because this is it was in your mom's basement for what, 35 years or something when you found it, and you said, you know what, I'm gonna update this thing and clean it up, and look what you ended up with.
And try to put it in a museum.
Yeah. And they're glad to have it, because I'll bet you in this museum, people look at that thing and they say, what in the world, right?
Yeah.
But there was a day when these were pretty common.
Oh, yeah. There's just probably 35 or 40 of them in this area.
Yeah. How neat. And this is a great little history lesson that you've put together here. Did your mom save all these pictures?
These pictures, when we found them, they were just in a little book of negatives. And when I decided to restore the negatives is the only thing they had from this era. So I went and got them pictures made off of the negatives. Cost me $40 to do that. And this is what we ended up with.
Okay, now here's the big question. When are you going to get this thing running again?
I tried to get it running. I tried to get it running about 20 years ago, and I wasn't successful.
You need a pit crew. You need the old pit crew that knows how to do this. Do one guy on each side and get that thing going.
Yeah, well, it's been set in a long time now. It'll still turn over, but it's been set in a long time. I can take this cover off here and show you the engine if you want to.
Sure, let's take a look at it, because it's curious to me what a double a two-man chainsaw engine must look like in a.
You don't get a very good view of it.
Well, we'll see what we can see.
Mostly what you can see is.
Oh man, it's right behind the seat.
Yeah, what you can see mostly is the exhaust pipes.
Okay, let's let Randy get in there so he can. Oh, sure enough. Isn't that amazing?
Ha! A chain drive. This is a Ike Pfoffer engine. It was a pre deal for Diston chainsaws.
Yeah.
It was Diston and Mercury went together, and Ike Pfoffer and all that come up with a Diston chainsaw.
That must be a powerful chainsaw.
It is. It's pretty fast.
John Gephardt, you've been a president of this club in the past.
Right, I'm an immediate past president.
Yeah. And you're still a member.
Right.
And you know, some people would be surprised to find in this, we've been looking at these vintage autos, you know, and some of them are kind of a surprise, like this one that belongs to you.
Right.
But it's here it's a significant automobile, isn't it?
Right, and it's a 1988 Dodge Aries, so next year it becomes an official historic car, but we kept it because it was the K-car design that saved Chrysler's bacon back when they first were almost going bankrupt. And so we've decided that we want to keep it and maintain it so that other future generations can see this particular boxy design. It's a K-car design.
This was a time in the 80s when Chrysler was going under because of Japanese competition.
Right.
And Iacocca's claim was that this design could compete with the Japanese competition and kept the company afloat, huh?
Right, and this car got 30 miles to the gallon. So it got good gas mileage, and it's really roomy inside, which is one of the things that Americans really like, is a car that's got a lot of room and of course gets good gas mileage.
They sold a bunch of them, didn't they?
Right.
Yep. I remember driving them. I wasn't too happy with them, but they did run.
Oh, yeah.
And they kept running.
It's got 120,000 miles on it. And it's still running good.
Yeah. Now, and this is gorgeous here, this one. This is, this DeSoto is a beautiful piece of work.
This is owned by a friend of mine, Wayne Hempelman, and it's a 1949 DeSoto coupe. And what's neat about it is it's got a fluid drive transmission. So it's, back in the old days, automatic transmissions were kind of unique. Well, this one will actually shift as you're driving. You just let up on the gas and it'll shift to the next gear.
Now you have, what, 45 members in this club?
Right.
And of course you don't have room for 45 cars, so you kind of swap them in and out, I guess, huh?
This constantly changes and the members change. We've had, years ago, that side, opposite side of the museum used to be all Model A's and Model T's. But a lot of those members have passed on and they've sold their cars off, and so now we have newer cars, and it's so the inventory changes almost yearly. So when people say, oh, I saw the museum, well, you haven't really, because it's probably changed a lot from the last time you were down here.
Yeah. And you know, we're going to walk through between these beautiful GTOs. You know, for some people, this is the classic muscle car, the GTO. Boy,
and that's the thing. Each era has a different car that they love to preserve and show off. And of course, this is my pride and joy.
And we're going to get to this here in a moment. And it runs, this old Rambler runs so quietly that I barely hear it.
Yeah, it's really a quiet running car. And it's funny, the first time when I was driving it, because I used to drive it for years, I accidentally one time left it on at an airport. And the only way it ran off is it ran out of gas.
You got out and you didn't even know it was running. It's a 1960.
Right.
And you tell me that this is unusual. In fact, Mr. Mitchell was saying most cars had 2 doors.
Right.
Yeah.
This is an unusual one. I've been to the Rambler car shows up in Kenosha, and I've not seen another 4-door. And that's the thing that's unique about this, is it's a 4-door car, and also the seats in this one lay down flat, and the front seat lays back.
I'll be darned.
And so it makes a bed.
So it's a camper.
Yeah, it's with an early camper. In fact, a car just like this, some buddies and I went down to a state park in Kentucky, and we stayed in the car overnight.
I'll bet you slept pretty well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Open up the hood for us, and because under the hood, it's kind of different too, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a flathead 6 engine, and the spark plugs are on top of the engine.
And that's what makes it a flat head, huh?
Right.
And that was unusual? I mean, that was an unusual design?
Right. Most of the went with V8s and 6 cylinders where the spark plugs were on the side. Here they put them right down the top.
Yeah, and look how small the air filter is, for instance.
Right.
That's kind of unusual. The oil filter looks the same and the battery looks the same, but most batteries aren't sitting on top of the engine anymore.
No. So it's a very unique design.
Yes, it is. Okay, let's walk down the way. We'll remember to turn that off so you don't run out of gas. Oh, this is pretty. This is
this is
a Model A, a 1930 Model A.
Model A Ford. Actually runs real good, and in fact, the gentleman uses it. People contract with him to use it in weddings.
I'll bet.
It's got "Just Married" on the back window, so it must have been used in a wedding.
So he's going to ask him, hey, clean the car after you're finished using it, right?
Right.
Okay, and you brought this one to my attention earlier because this has a story.
Yeah, this one, if you ever watch the Hee Haw TV show, and they're on reruns on the Country Music Channel, this was the actual car where they used to tell jokes in it. Junior Samplers used to stand here with his foot on
He would, with a little, hay sticking out of his jaw.
And then they'd also have him in the seats there talking. Buck Owens would be sitting there. And one of our club members happened to buy this at an auction. And we now have it on display in the museum.
It still has the Tennessee license plate. 1928 Ford Model A Roadster pickup. A pickup.
It's a pickup.
Yeah. A 4-cylinder, and it would have been on a Tennessee farm, wouldn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. Really nice. The Mississippi Valley Historic Auto Club has a free auto show every June on Father's Day. And if you're interested in coming out during the summer, they're open every Sunday during the summer in the afternoons. So give them a call and come on out. And Dave said he's going to give me a ride in this fantastic Dodge Brothers vehicle. Oh, Dave, thanks. Away we go. With another Illinois story, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.